Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Welcome everyone to our second Read Fink Award talk of this year, White Hot to Whitewall, Steel Archives Reimagined. This award honors Dr. Merle E. Reed and Dr. Gary Fink for their contributions to education, labor studies, and the Southern Labor Archive. Fellowships of at least $250 are awarded annually to individuals whose research in the Southern Labor Archives will lead to a book, article, dissertation, or other product. Emily A. Baker is an artist and researcher based in Atlanta, Georgia. Her work studies manufacturing industries and honors the industrial past while actively re-envisioning who is included in its future. By investigating the worker's role in relation to automation, technology, and trade, her work bridges gaps between materials, industries, and bodies, fostering a deeper connection to the products we use and the journeys they have taken. Centered on identity, repair, and retroactive healing, both within the body and of place, she expands upon the fragility of industry alongside the economic and seismic shifts shaping the future of work. In this talk, she will share how she reimagines historical photographs by layering traditional neon over images of white hot steel. A shifting gradient of color evokes both the cooling decline of the US steel in the 1970s and simulates the intensity of an industry while in a white wall gallery. So please join me in welcoming Emily. And if you have questions that arise during her presentation, please put them in the chat and I will make sure to ask them at the end. Emily, welcome. We're very excited for your talk.
Thanks. Me too. Just came together. So I probably have enough content for 3 talks in this talk. So I'm going to do my best to kind of give some context and move quickly. So I'm originally from Northern California. I'm now based in Atlanta and have been here. I'm in my 4th year teaching here at GSU. So I run the sculpture program here, and there's our Instagram page, so you can follow us. And oh, let me figure out how to get to the next slide. Oh, there we go. Okay, cool. So I have some thank yous that I want to get to first, so I don't forget. Thank you, Lisa and Lydia, for all your help in the archive and my like frantic hard pivot requests that happened this week. And also Dr. Reed and Dr. Fink for making this possible. I want to thank some of my archive helpers from when I started this project in New Jersey, which would be Candace, Isabel, and Giovanna. And then I've continued to work on this project that the archives that I have at GSU, working with students Shakima, Chloe Obasi, Callie Cummings. Right now, my studio assistants are Yufei and Mark Alexander. I had a bunch of students help me last weekend with this thing I'm going to share with you today. So that would be Lyndon and Callie and Gibby and Skylar and V, and Marcus and Io and Ayana helped a lot with some fabrication. I had Jaden help me in the archive, also the Goat Farm and the Neon Company, especially Vivian and Mike Pierce at the National Museum of Industrial History. And also a general thank you to anyone who's ever helped me move anything heavy. I am so sorry. It will happen again. Okay, cool. So my hypothesis for working with the Southern Labor Archive at GSU was first to search for white hot steel, so images of white hot steel. And then it took a little bit of a shift when I didn't fully find that into seeking notations. And I'll talk about what that means. For context about what I do, I'm an iron caster. I would say still relatively new. I started doing this. I did my first iron pour at Chico State in California in 2011, and then wasn't able to return to it until 2018. California, there's not a lot of coke out in refined coal for actually the process of iron casting. And iron casting started as an art form around the 1970s. As you can imagine, it was predominantly a white male dominated field, and that shifted when George Beasley was working with students in Atlanta 50 years ago. So this photo means a lot to me. This is one of the first pours that I did here at Georgia State in 2023. And so additional context, this is what we do. These photos were by our third year photo grad student, Haley. So this is the tapping of the furnace, and students work together to catch the iron and pour it into holes that then become art. One thing I want to show here is some notations on this iron furnace. So this is how we keep track of how many charges we've put in. It's fun to have little stats at the end of like, oh, we poured 5,000 pounds of iron over the course of 6 hours or whatever. So we're using soapstone, which is basically chalk to keep track, and also the time, like every time, so that you can kind of measure the efficiency of the furnace. So I just wanted to give you a little bit of context. So that's me in the white helmet. I don't usually pour because we have enough students. So whenever I am pouring, it's because all the students were tapped out, and we kind of just had to be like, somebody needs to pour this. So that's George Beasley in the back, skimming from the back, which is a rare move, and Justin Abraham on the right pouring with me. This is what I'm obsessed with, and I can't get enough of it. And I love teaching students. It really feels like it's a team sport. And that's what the joke is about sculpture, is that it's a team sport. Shameless plug for the iron pour that we're actually going to be having here at GSU, which will be December 6th. So you should come out to that to see more of this. So now we're going to go back a little bit. So I went to, in 2018, I went to an iron conference in Granite City, Illinois. And I was traveling a lot at that time for iron conferences, and I got to tour this site, which President Trump had just visited 2 weeks prior, as there was a new round of tariffs happening. And so they just started up, they'd hired 200 more people, they had just started a dormant furnace. So it was really amazing to be able to tour a site that was active, because I've spent a lot of time with non-active sites. And it just reminded me of like my smallness in comparison to these like huge processes, but also sort of bolstered my confidence in like our collective ability to adapt and innovate. So that was sort of one of the things that got me wanting to understand the history of metal, and also like the political implications of that. And so then in 2019, I went to Salem Artworks. And that's it's in upstate New York. And I did a body of work kind of comparing the political allegories in The Wizard of Oz and the metallurgic references, like the yellow brick road. And she had silver slippers in the book, and like mirroring that to the dust bowl to the rust belt. So I'm just sort of giving you a little bit of context. I was exploring all things metal. So I was researching the canning industry and the automotive industry. I kept the mold in this piece, not in that piece because it broke. So normally you wouldn't keep the resin sand. That would be something that you would discard, but I kind of wanted to keep that there. Um, this is a wheel well from a really big truck. And I cast some Barbie Converse high top silver slippers. In the book, she was wearing silver slippers to represent the silver standard in relation to the gold standard, which was the yellow brick road. So that's like for scale. And I was thinking about the Tin Man, and he was rusty due to prolonged unemployment. And so this is cast pewter, which has tin in it. So the alloy was really important, that it was the right one, I guess. This is cast iron. Normally you would not keep the gating. All of this is the sprue system of like how the metal gets to the piece. And I felt like if I cleaned it up entirely, I just made an iron train, a toy train. And I wanted to reference the history of enslaved people building these metropolises. So I felt like I had to leave this sort of phantom, like rough, coarse, sharp material of like how this, like showing the behind the scenes of how this object was built. Normally I would not leave the gating on, and I would say that's cheating. But at that same time that I was at that residency, I visited this site in Watervliet, New York, which is Albany area. And this is part of Altec, Allegheny Ludlam, and they made specialty steel, so stainless steel alloys. So they went bankrupt in 2002, and something about seeing processes that I recognized in my everyday in these like really sad, dormant locations. And that hoist hook on the side was really important. It felt like it cost too much to take it down, but these things were still really useful, and it kind of mirrored what I felt like maybe the people who got laid off might have felt like they wanted to work. And so I've been using the hoist as like a motif in my work. And so this is what I found. Like, yeah. So a lot of water damage, fire damage. I know Lisa's like terrified. I just felt this like immense burden to like care for a space, because a lot of times when people find spaces like this, their instinct is to destruct because nobody's watching. And I just like felt this immense responsibility to salvage what I could. So um the photo on the right is where I found the archive that I have, which is part of it is here behind me. And I visited a couple times, and then I just felt like I had to get back. And I think I visited about 10 times. Only once by myself. Don't do that. The photo on the left has a box that says nuclear. Fun. Um, so this is where they would do the annealing of the steel. So these are kilns that had fallen apart. And then I found photographs. Initially, I didn't find photographs. So then I actually found a photograph of the site that I had physically been in, and that just was like really that had like it really impacted me in this like kind of out of body way. Um, and uh, so this has been like a major source of inspiration and probably will be forever. So this is the archive. I also want to say like every photo that I'm showing, if it's not indicated that it came from the Southern Labor Archive, it came from the archive that I am the steward of. And so great. Okay, we said that. Okay, so yeah, I really wanted to understand the shifts that was happening globally and economically, and also like the seismic shifts that will need to happen in the future of work. Source unknown. See, I'm trying to get better at this. So when I look at these photos, I think a lot about the body. So I think my work is a lot about like embodiment. And I wonder, there's a lot of big feelings about removing the laborer from the floor. I think maybe their body is saved. There's less wear and tear. Um, but this is like a really contentious topic, and I wonder like what is lost and what is gained. Um, so I'm trying to within my practice locate like the human body. Is that scale? Is that touch? Labor? Is it absence? And so whether I'm looking at fragile like archival materials or replicating handles physically, I'm interested in places where the hand is involved. Um, and I'm trying to figure out ways to bring back like the physical presence of workers whose bodies shaped these industries, but the photographs were typically never centered around them. Most of the photographs that I have are photographing a product, and there's a snapshot of somebody who was walking by, but the main objective of the photographer was to photograph the products that they were producing. Um, and so I also wonder, so like we know the space above, what the space, like I know what that space looks like when it was vacant. And I'm starting to wonder a little bit of like, how different will this space feel when it's left vacant? I feel like it will be very sterile, but so this is what the space that I retrieved the archives from in Watervliet. This is what this space looks like now. All that remains is this stainless steel footbridge. And thank you to my dear friend and accomplice, Andrew, for snapping this photo. It's also interesting that those handrails are stainless because that's like a really expensive metal, but they were making stainless there. So this is the photo that I'm going to spend a lot of time with. And this is also from Watervliet. And this is called a rolling mill. So they're feeding white hot piece of steel through and incrementally moving it into a smaller opening to elongate the metal. There's also a chain hanging down on either side. So if you look at the back of behind this rolling mill, there's you can kind of see the hat of another person who's actually going to be catching it on that side and then feeding it back through. Um, I love that I can see the shadows of the flash and the way that like the steel illuminates the image. So this led me um, to want to physically illuminate it. And this was what led me to want to see what I could find in the Southern Labor Archive here at GSU. Um, okay, that's what I want to say about that. Oh, also, there's some notations on this one as well. I think that says quarter. It's with the soapstone, and so this image also has markings there and there. And then the markings that I'm interested in finding and looking for aren't they aren't labels. They're not indicators necessarily of what the thing is. It's usually people wanting to remember something or doing math or doing a diagram to like explain something to somebody else. And I've noticed them a lot of times, but now I'm doing it with more intention within the archive. So, okay. Um, Great. So this is a composite image, a bad Photoshop. This is sort of proof of concept. The hard part about being good enough at Photoshop is like I can develop something like this and then be like, great, all I have to do is make it. That's easy. And so this is sort of hard to see, but there's a shift in color. Um, and it was always designed as a triptych. And I wanted to reference the shift in color that happens with steel as it's cooling down, but also hoping that that shift in color could reference the industry as a whole. Like as mills shut down, things went cold. So when steel is called white hot, that's the hottest that it can get. And I'm not going to give temperatures because I'm not that much of a metal nerd, only a little bit. But that is when you would want to be elongating and manipulating. When it shifts to something that we call cherry red, in like small scale blacksmithing, that's fine, but you're not gonna be able to move as much material as efficiently. So it's like actually like a waste of energy on either your body or equipment. So then I actually got the pieces illuminated with neon. One of the well, I'll talk about that later, but the neon company and Vivian in particular helped me with this. And my hypothesis was like the image itself is already illuminating, and I wanted to capitalize on the structure in the photo and then insert a new color. Okay. So I made one piece first, and this was the piece that I completed and installed at Sloss Furnaces in Birmingham, Alabama, and this is actually in the coke bins. So Sloss Furnaces, they only made pig iron there, which is a component used to make steel. And this was helpful to get the piece outside and see how it felt in a space that was related, adjacent to its context, and also like a really charged site in Birmingham. And while the title is referencing like the colloquial term for a temperature of metal, it's also very much alluding to the intense cultural dynamics inside steel communities. So spaces where Eastern and Southern European immigrants, Appalachian workers, and Black migrants labored side by side, even as they navigated segregation, discrimination, and a racialized division of industrial labor. So when you're working in these sort of intense environments, you really have to trust each other and almost be able to work without communication. And some of the other places I'm researching, like Carey Furnaces in Pittsburgh, there was maybe 5 to 7 different languages spoken in that one space. So I was thinking about that as well. This piece was really hard to photograph, and so we switched to dimmers. It's your eyeballs can do it, but the camera was having trouble because of, yeah, anyways, light. Okay. Yeah, so I wanted white hot to both reference the temperature of steel, but also like racial hierarchies that structured who got which jobs in those spaces and like who faced greater danger, and also ultimately whose stories were preserved in archives. So this is an image from the Southern Labor Archive, and one of my hurdles for working with neon and finding an image is that I couldn't the neon had to be 8 inches or longer. So I couldn't do a smaller one. And so I had to find images that were directly steel. So this is a little bit of an indirect, and it had to be linear or long enough for those parameters. So yeah, fabricating this triptych, I loved the formula and I wanted to find additional imagery that was maybe more site specific to where I live. And so this is an image from Atlantic Steel Company. This is an employee standing by the crop shears at the mill in the late 1960s. So this image wouldn't work for the formula that I was trying to go for. A lot of the images that I am obsessed with and I love came from a scrapbook. So these are photocopies of images from a scrapbook belonging to Ira L. Richards, who was a longtime Atlantic Steel employee and official for the United Steelworkers of America. So there's steel being poured into these ingots, but like this photo, the quality isn't what I need, and it's not long enough. So love it, but cannot use it. Um, okay, this one. So I found this image early on, and this is sort of what like was my hunch. So this is also in the Southern Labor Archive. This is at Atlantic Steel Company in the 1960s. And this is showing something called takeoff, which is steel rod and wire. So Atlantic Steel Company was known for making the tie wires for cotton bales, fencing, barbed wire, shackles, like for rigging shackles. So I'm hoping to use this one because I think it could work. That stream that you can see, I think is water. So it's trying to cool it down as it's coming out. So I did a proposal for the Goat Farm, which is an art space in Atlanta that was a former site of the historic E. Van Winkle Gin and Machine Works and then the Murray Company. So this is not from Atlantic Steel Company, but it's in the town. So I was running with it. So this is would be a photograph that would be mounted to this corner of chain link fence that has barbed wire on the top. And then it would have neon cascading. So the site at the goat farm originally was making cotton gins and then went to munitions in World War II and later to sheet metal production. And so I did this proposal. This place is too falling down for it to go there, but the neon would then start small and then expand, like get bigger in size and then turn a corner. So significantly harder, scarier. Neon is glass, by the way. Scary. I'm used to not that type of material. So moving the pieces that I made was like terrifying. This was my proposal. That's a person. Somewhat ironically, this work I proposed to this event called Site, which is a one-day public activation of the space. And it did not get approved for that. I think it was too site-specific and maybe too much of a downer, I guess. Like they weren't really into the barbed wire. They wanted it to be sort of like a light, fun evening of like cool things to look at. I think it was like too heady. They didn't like the barbed wire, but for me that part was important since it's so relevant to what they were making. So this piece is currently pending. And I was also going to be laser etching products. The image of the hand is actually from my archive, but it's part of one of the products that they made there. So those pieces would be laser etched on blue glass, mirroring like a blueprint. So these were products that were made at Atlantic Steel Company. Here's another image that I found that I'm considering using. I don't think it was a photocopy, but it is pretty dark. So this one I think could also be a contender with that curve of the rod that they're elongating and making. So I'm not sure if I'll use it, but I think I'll get it printed to scale. What scale? I don't know. To see how it looks. And maybe the darkness is okay with the neon and the contrast, so I'm not sure. Okay. So I installed the piece, so the pieces were made. I think it took me a year. Oh, someone's knocking at the door right now. I'm in my studio right now. Okay, well, I'm not saying anything. So this is at the faculty show at GSU. These photographs that I'm going to show you are by Yufei, and this was in October. So this has been pretty fresh just to feel what it feels like to have this piece in a Whitewall gallery. Um, and we tried it with different lights, and only did I think about potentially showcasing this in a dark Whitewall gallery when I dropped it off and saw that happening. This gallery has glossy floors, which I wasn't thinking about, which I think is kind of cool. Um, so I'm kind of thinking about a body of work like this that then will be showcased in a dark gallery, and that's the show. I'm also considering adding heaters to under each piece. So as you walk into the space, um, as you get closer to the work, it gets hotter. And so we're going to go up here a little bit. For scale, if that helps, that's Trey, my student Trey. So yeah, I'm wondering, it's too fresh to know, but I'm trying to ask viewers to attempt to imagine what it might be like if a rolling mill was in a gallery, what it might be like for their body to be near something that's a little bit bigger or closer to size of to scale of a rolling mill. Um, I don't know if that's happening or not, but I am considering doing a proposal where there's heaters and it ends up being sort of a bad simulation. So it will never be close to what being in this space would have been like ever. So I'm kind of interested in the bad simulation. So I'm not sure if like maybe there's a heater under each image and the one that's white is hotter and the one that's red is cooler, or just like the entire space is warm. That's something that showing in this space kind of led me to start thinking about. And then here's some details. This is of the neon. There's little wires around the tube, which is just standard for neon. So I kept that there. So yeah, I'm thinking like, is this the right location for this work? Like, does a sterile environment like heighten the juxtaposition of an industrial shop and therefore the work is better? Like, how can I merge communities that I want to speak to? So then I brought the pieces to the goat farm. This is building 8. And I did some research on this site for this building. So according to the National Register of Historic Places, an inventory from July of 1979, this building 8, dated from the original decade of construction, was first used for woodworking, testing, and construction. By 1911, it had been outfitted as a machine shop on the first floor, so that's this floor, and a gin making and wood shop on the second floor. By 1931, it had been converted again, this time to sheet metal fabrication, and today it's leased to a small metal fabricating company, today being 1979. So this is, if you see in the far left side, there's an opening, and that is what this room is. And so I spent a lot of time in this space, and I chose this space because of this gantry crane system. I mean, you have to move it yourself, but it's similar to a system that's within the photograph. So that was important. We did some photographs in this space where we tried different lighting. And I will say, like, these pieces are fairly portable. They fit in my one truckload, but they're still heavy. The backs of these stands have pieces of solid stainless, because we had it at school, that each weigh like 80 pounds. So it is doable. The setup is about an hour. Takedown's about an hour. But it's not nothing, I'll say. So we tried a couple different lighting options. I still, this was 2 weekends ago. It's still pretty fresh. I don't fully know what's happening. But I got some gels, tried it out. Um, then we moved back to the other space. So this is what my hunch for this, we made, so Yufei and I went and we got there before dawn, and the goal was a 12-hour time lapse. To my hunch and my hope was that the neon would illuminate the structure in the space and then have this like shift when as the sun came up, and then another shift, right? So we got there 2 weekends ago. We were 2 hours into a 12-hour shoot when the power got cut to bring power to a new amazing museum that's going to happen over there. That's going to be Mocha GA. And I freaked out and like, what are we going to do? It's like, luckily the goat farm had space and availability, and I was able to do it the following weekend, which really also gave me more time to spend time with the piece. It's one thing to make the piece and get to know it in that way, but then you kind of have to reacquaint yourself to the work once it's completed. So I got to visit it for like an additional week. So what I'm going to show you right now is about 50 seconds. It's the first draft of a time lapse that has been edited together. And so I think I'm going to shift a little bit with the bookends of the piece. I don't know if it exists as a video because and so over the course of making this work, the content of the piece shifted, I think, now being about spending time within building 8. There's also a slight alignment of this jib crane chain that like you'll see that aligns with the chain in the photo that I really love. So I'm lucky that the power was cut 2 hours into a 12-hour video and not 10 hours into a 12-hour video. But we did go back last weekend and do it again. So I'm going to show you this now. Okay. So as it was ending, I am a performance artist. I've done performance, and you always focus on the bookends of a performance. And so we realized like we've been sitting with this piece for 12 hours and it felt wrong to just like turn it off and be like, all right. And so I was like, we have to, something else has to happen. And so I went in and I turned off the white one and we took a shot, and then I turned off the yellow, and then I turned off the red. So I think I'm going to try to elongate that. So that felt more in line with what I was wanting to talk about how it faded out. So it was sort of just interesting. Yeah, like I didn't anticipate that, but it felt not right to just be like, all right, we're done. When you spend so long with that piece. So here's another photograph. We had some difficulty with there was big heavy equipment there we couldn't move to get out of the shot. So this is like zoomed out. And so it is illuminating the space above, which is like what I really which I was hoping for. Um, and I was hoping to get that in the video, but I think it's also okay for the piece to still exist. Like you can't get everything from a screen. Like you still have to experience this work. So I like that it's withholding a little bit within the video, so that there's still something that you can experience differently in person. And then I went back again and I attempted in the back, there's chains in the back. And so I tried to line those up with the chains in the image. I don't know, just trying things. So sort of, So obviously we spent a lot of time in this space, and I examined the space as I normally do in like a very more closer way. And I think a lot of times people will see this as a vacant warehouse. And even when I was first dropping off, people were shooting a music video in there, and we found a lot of fake $100 bills. And so, I know the history of what this site was. My guess is that people in the music video do not. But so I started to kind of look around, and I'm searching in a different way, and I found that there was a lot of notations on the beams and on the walls. And I will never be able to know what era those came from because this space has had so many lives. Also as an art space, um, previously to the art space that it is now. So this led to a new search within the Southern Labor Archive, and I'll show you a couple of my findings from that. And it's something I've seen at spaces across the country. And I had some photos, and now seeing it in this space, it led me to actually want to seek it out in the archive. I also have examples from my archive, and it's not something that you can Google. I can't search math on walls. You have to look at every photo with the little thing, sometimes with the negative. Um, and so I did a frantic last pull of things. And so these are some of the notations that I found at the goat farm. And a lot of the beams had been painted over. And so that eliminated a lot, I'm sure. I also attempted to scan them with this like weird document scanner, but it didn't work very well. So yeah, there's a lot of math happening, and maybe explaining something to somebody, or I mean, I do this all the time. I'll like take a measurement and then go to cut it, and immediately it's gone. Where did it go? So my guess is that a lot of these are noting it so that then when you get to that space, you're like, what was that again? Okay. So I have enough experience working fabrication to know the function of these for a lot of the time. So I think maybe we got long division happening. Um, Steve, like maybe these are someone like when you're jotting down notes from a phone call. Maybe I showed you that one already. Okay. So these are from Building 8. I also had some from when I visited Bethlehem Steel, and Mike also sent me a couple other ones, and so I'm trying to show you kind of where they are. Bethlehem Steel stopped operation in 1995. So can you see them? Sort of hard to see. And so I'm less interested in the notes from one worker to the other, and I'm more interested in the notations, I guess is just like what I'm calling them, because they're not labels. I don't think that's the part I'm interested in. So this is from the Alltech. This is a train car of steel that they're sending out, and someone played tic-tac-toe on the crate, and I love that. This is a grinding machine, so they're checking the alloy with an etch, and they made this, and then that crazy thing is a grinder. So in the back, there's some notations. And like they're all at like eye level because of arms. Um, and I can't tell you the dopamine rush of looking and looking and looking and then finding one. Like my hunch is that this one is potentially talking about a weld. Um,
Hey,
or
hey, Rosa.
oh,
Rosa.
hey, Ashley. Okay, we just muted Ashley. Okay, great. Um, so yeah, there's something really lovely. I mean, every time I look through an archive, you're waiting, you're seeking, you're hoping to find this one thing. or something. And so you always go in with like some sort of hypothesis. Now, I will say it's really hard, I was going to say this earlier, to not um, pull on every thread as you're looking through things. Like I'll find a tag, a shipping tag. Um, hey, let me do that. I'll find a shipping tag and then want to like there's shipping tags there and then want to go research the address on that shipping tag. And it's like, okay. So it is helpful to actually compress time and not have too much time when you are with a box because I will like it's too much. I'm only one person. So anyways, and then this is we worked with a Bowers Fabrication in Oxford, Georgia to make an iron furnace last year. And so I jotted these down or I photographed these as I was there. So this is 2024. And I think there's something really universal in this. And I think that's what I may be responding to. I'm part of a blacksmithing group that we meet up at different sites around Atlanta. So this is at this place that makes hydraulics for elevators. And sometimes there's these, which I also love. There was quite a few other choice words I didn't include in today's talk. And so I'm less, I mean, I think that does show the humanity of people, but that's not the one I'm honing in on, I don't think. I will say that during my stint this week with the Labor Archive, I also pulled some files from like the aerospace, or no, the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers. And my hunch was proven correct in this very small sample size, in that aerospace engineers, aren't the people who need to write down something to remember. So none of these photographs of them working at lathes or mills, and within mine either, have notations on the equipment or the walls. So I'll just say that. So here are some that I found from the Sheet Metal Workers Project. And my hope is to advocate for this folder to be digitized because they're like just really beautiful photographs, and I they were in negative form, so um, they helped me scan these ones. And so this one, it's right there, and that is 14 plus 86 equals 229. And here, oh, there is a better one. This is a brake, and it's probably a hydraulic brake, and so it's a shear. I think it's a shear. So this is cutting sheet metal. So this is the yeah, sheet metal workers, also called tinker. Is that right? Now I'm blanking. Tin knockers. Tin knockers is one of their associations. So there's some stuff there. So some of this is directional, and like educational to whomever's working there. So this is a ductwork that's spot welded, and in the back, I think is I think a brake. And so we have a diagram there and some other stuff there. And then I reached out to some people that I know, a former student of mine, and people who work in fabrication now. The people I reached out to happened to all be women. So progress. Um, of the ones who are, well, maybe not all, but a lot of them that are working on a smaller scale. And this is what our notes are now. I don't think that's true across the board, but there's a little bit of like a loss of, I don't know what it's a loss of. Aura, the transcription, the connection to the hand. And so as of this week, that's sort of where I've left off. I do not know what I'm going to do with these images. I do not know what I'm going to do with this collection, but I think I'm starting to compile more from the archives and the spaces that I have access to. Thanks. That's my talk.
Thank you so much, Emily. It was great.
With so many things. just a glimpse of what I is in my head.
Well, and I think it's so indicative of kind of like archival research of like you go in thinking you're going to do one thing, and then there's always like a pivot that happens
Yeah,
just based on like what you can find. And so it's
right.
always really interesting to hear people kind of talk about that in real time and what that can look like. Um, so I'm going to give some folks time in to write questions in the chat. I have a prepared question for you while we let kind of people formulate their own questions. So your work often deals with the tension between handmade processes and automated industrial ones. How has spending time inside archives, especially the Southern Labor Archive and the remains of AL Tech, shifted your understanding of where the hand appears and disappears in industrial history?
Yeah. So I've done kind of using the archive. I didn't there's many things I didn't include in this talk. I have within the archive that I have access to here, they have a lot of photographs of products that I'm reproducing. And so I'm photographing the photograph and then making a line drawing, a vector of that, and expanding that using a laser cutter to cut that out, using that as a template onto clay to make a mold to cast it in iron. And so in that process, I'm using digital means to produce this thing. With these photographs, I'm considering of the notations, like, can I create those notations to be vectors that then could be cut out of something? And so I love having the hand be the origin for what I'm seeking in a space or an archive, and then like negotiating and navigating the use of technology that I have access to um, as a way to make the next iteration. Yes. I don't know if that says it, but yeah, that's what I'm thinking about.
Awesome. Well, I don't see anything in the chat right now. Also, feel free to raise your hand and you can unmute and ask a question. Um,
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
yes, we can.
Okay. Hey, Emily. Um, I really like how your display in the warehouse spaces sort of breathes life back into those spaces. I wonder, do you ever think about incorporating like sound? I know you had mentioned video as well.
Um, yes, sound is hard. I forgot to say that over the course of our 14 hours there, on a Saturday, 58 trains came through. I was keeping track and I wrote down the time. Um, and I think we forget that that is still happening. Like, we experience trains, but like big business is still being conducted in that way. And so that that sound and that I guess soundscape when we were there might appear in this video if the work exists as a video. Um yeah, I thought about it. I think I'm like oversaturated with images and access to images that the idea of then adding that same level of saturation in sound feels like really overwhelming of a possibility. Um, but I mean, a lot of, like when I showcase some of these images of the neons at that site on Instagram, and people are like, "Oh, I want to come see it," and I'm like, "This isn't that. This is to document. This is to make a video. It's not like a show. So I want people to experience it too, but I haven't had enough people experience it, and for me to get feedback to know what that is like. But I'm thinking about how to integrate sound with static imagery too. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. Okay, I see Josh has it. Josh, yeah.
Uh, well, thank you, Professor Baker, for the presentation. First of all, and taking the time. I have a question. I don't know if this is something that's a little bit too far out, but Elon Musk recently did a presentation himself talking about automation and how we might find a future where work is voluntary. and people would do it the way like one tends to their own home garden, just for fun, just to keep themselves stimulated with activity. When you think about automation, these manufacturing facilities, do you see in the future, even if it's a few decades out, people still want to do it just for just the way one thinks with a car in their garage because they enjoy the processes of manufacturing?
That I haven't watched that. Please send it to me.
Okay.
I think something that I'm noticing a lot. I mean, I just a couple weekends ago spent 5 hours watching documentaries on the coal industry in West Virginia. Um, I think a lot of work um, of this work ends up being tied to their identity. So when an industry shifts, people who have generationally been working in that way, one, there's like their skill set is there and now it's removed. And so I think I wonder, I mean, I guess you can have an identity also as a gardener in like the way that you said, but yeah, I think there's such a tie and camaraderie. And I also think there's a shift happening now where from the archives I spent time with, like people like one, they lived in company houses potentially or company stores. And so that was maybe tied in a way that I think was exploitative a bit. But their life, they had the picnic, the company picnic, the Christmas party, like everything was tied to their place of employment. And now it's a shift where like we clock out. Why spend time with people at work when you're not at work? I'm like really ingrained in that way. But yeah, so I don't know. That's I can't I don't know. I haven't thought about that. But we should get a beer sometime and talk about it for too many hours. I would love.
Sounds good.
Any other questions that folks have?
My,
Well,
my parents are also here, and I said they weren't allowed to ask questions, but but you can if you want.
we have one in the chat from Kurt. Oh, first off, sorry for cutting off your power. Great presentation. I find it interesting that you have keyed in on the notations and the impact that the hand has on the production and fabrication. In my trade, the architectural industry used to be hand drawn, and I find the drawings that are done today to be very sterile because the craft has been removed from the artistry that drafter used to have in their skill. Keep digging and searching for the notations.
Thanks, Kirk. Thanks for being here. I might have befriended the project manager of the museum. Uh, First from slight panic. But yeah, it's really fun that he's here. And we got to kind of hang out in the space and kind of go through it and learn a little bit from his architecture background. So that was really cool to learn about these like fire doors, where if there was a fire, this ring at the top was a low temp metal, and so that would burn and then close the door. So yeah, these notations feel really important and overlooked. And yeah, finding them in and also having the hunch of like this line of work would not have this on their equipment, whereas this line of work might. And yeah, I actually my undergrad degree is in interior design, so I learned hand drafting. And so like I'll still twirl my pencil when I'm drawing a straight line, because that's what you do so that the lead doesn't gets worn evenly, so that your line stays the same thickness down the page instead of it starting as a tip and then getting thicker on the way out. So yeah, I'm connected in that way, and I'm trying to think about how I can use scale and work a little bit bigger to have people's bodies be adjacent to something that would be to scale in the industry and see what that feels like. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, if folks have any more questions, please feel free to drop it in the chat or on mute. I have another question for you. So you spent years walking through the industrial ruins and handling the remnants. how has physically encountering these materials, the rusted steel, the broken tools, abandoned documents, as we saw, how's that changed the way that you think about time and decay in your artistic process?
It makes me want to not throw anything away ever. So that's a big bit of a problem. Um, Kirk showed me these railroad ties that they're gonna scrap, and I can't stop thinking about them. And they are 36 feet long, and I need them because they are like paramount to that location. And so that is a problem sometimes. Um, so yeah, and I think there's a lot about fragmentation that I want to spend time with, and I showcase that sometimes digitally through the work. So I'll do a bad 3D scan with my phone, and a lot is lost in that 3D scan of something. And I like to showcase like the glitch or the error, because that mirrors the fragmentation of what has been left behind. And so I think sometimes that's how I um, address that, I guess. Yeah.
Awesome. We have another question in the chat. How do you balance the research, excavation, study versus producing work? Um, are they simulated together or are they separate tasks altogether?
Yeah. Um, yeah, that's a hard one, because I have like 8 projects going on at a time. And I do think that sometimes that's a good way of working, because if I have something that I don't have a solution for, I can pivot to doing something else and still feel productive. And then that sort of resolves itself potentially. Or if I get halted in one way, I'm actually glad that it took that long, because if I would have done the thing I thought I was gonna do, like I liked what I found out or ended up at later better. So sometimes I think having a human body and limitations can actually help the work. I do feel like I want to make work faster. So I sometimes will go in phases of receiving information and seeking information and being open to more, and then stop looking. Start just go with what I have. And so there's a bit of a flow there. Um, so I would say they are definitely happening together, and informing each other, because I have different subsets. Like I also have an entire body of work about the history of nylon that has been slowed and halted. But yeah, so that's a good question. My dad asked, isn't AI taking over the industry? Yes. Um, yeah, I mean, so that place that I showed you guys, I know we're about to wrap up. In 2018 in Granite City, I was there when they were calibrating the robots that were going to be moving molds from space to space. So they got this new technology, and it's us, the artists, looking at them, the workers, and we're like, wow, this is amazing. And then they're calibrating these robots to move around. But like people still have to be heavily involved in that. I'm also spending time with the Lodge Cast Iron in South Pittsburgh, Tennessee, and all of their lines are automated. They're thinking about opening up one. So like now an artist could not come in to use that space to make their own work, because everything is automated. It like has no flexibility or freedom to do anything beyond what it's designed to do. And so they're thinking about potentially opening up a line for artists similar to like the Kohler residency. So yeah, we just gotta adapt. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think with especially AI, we're not as far as we think we are. Like for quite a while in the foreseeable future, humans are still going to need to be involved.
Yeah. And like even I mean I teach digital sculpture, and the idea I worked with a library once who just like wanted to get their printers working. And I'm like, never ever are you just gonna send to print like a printer and like a paper printer. Like we're cleaning nozzles, we're calibrating. Like there's a lot of involvement. It's more of a collaboration than um even sending to a paper printer. Never easy. It can sense your fear. So I think there's still many places for our bodies. But maybe our bodies in our black lung, and maybe we'll be in our overuse injuries will subside. So I think I really try to stay open and not have like a hard stance one way or the other, because I'm here as like a translator and not to like only say like, yeah, I'm here as like a conduit, you know? Yeah.
Well, awesome. We are at time. Thank you so much again for your great talk. We very much enjoyed having you in the archive and look forward to having you back. And I look forward to where your work is going to take you next.
Thank you so much. Yeah, my Instagram is down there if you want to reach out, and also my website. And yeah, hit me up with your questions because I'd love to keep the conversation going.
All right.
Take care.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you again,
Yeah.
Emily.
Bye.
Thank you, Emily. Bye.